Live from Dayton, Ohio for the first four, it's the Ohio Players.
Yes, sir. What's good? Always 10. Always 10 in the building, baby.
You know, we used to have Ohio Players little snippet on one of our shows, and we were forced to take it down. So I won't even consider going there anymore.
Well, you could do one thing. Bump, bump,
what's
bump.
that?
Bum, 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 bum. You're a bad, bad missus on your skin tight rich ass. Rock and bitch ass.
That got shut down real quick. So, anyway. But hey, much love, much love. Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Network's whatever the hell it is we're trying to do thing that we're trying to do here.
Trying to pick winners. You want to be a winner? You got the right to know.
Here we go. We got 17 screens going. We got papers. I actually held a pen and a pencil today simultaneously. So, you know, it's a weird thing, but here we go. All right, let's do this. We're going to look at each game for the first 2 days, Thursday and Friday. We're going to bypass the Tuesday, Wednesday because Tuesday's already happened. Wednesday's happened in about another 8 seconds, so we're not going to do anything about that. But we're going to move on to what we're going to move on to. So where would you like to start?
Your call, man. I'm just here.
All right. Let's look at the East region, starting with the Thursday game, Baylor against Norfolk State. Now, you have to forgive me because, like I said, I got 7 little papers going on here. I'm trying to figure out who's what where. But I got a little sheet from, let's say it's a Las Vegas casino sports book that's you might growl if you see it. Let's put it that way. And that might give you a little insight into what's going on. As we have mentioned, we aren't the gamblers. We are the pickers. Now, we're going to try and give you something to make a couple bucks for you. I'm going to say that. He might say something different. I'm not the one that's going to say, hey, this is going to make you a lot of money. I'm looking money line. I'm looking at making sure that we keep progressing day by day. And as we go, we might be able to parlay there's a word we can use, parlay a few things and a couple of more dollars. So let's look at this first game, and we're looking at the number 1 seed Baylor against Norfolk State. Anything we need to talk about on this one, sir?
Not really. I mean, you really got to give it up to Norfolk State because anytime you make it that far, you got to think where you're coming from, historically black college, and you make it, it's still a major accomplishment. But unfortunately, you know, it's like serving up lambs, you know, to the wolves when you come to the point as being a 16 seed against really the defending national champion. It's going to be very difficult for Norfolk State to kind of really make a run.
One of the fun things about this, and this is when if you are going to be a gambler, if you want to call it that, here's the idea. The way the sportsbook puts these things together for you, they try and even it out for you. They're really not trying to even it out for you, but they're giving you more things to look at. So let's look at the line here real quick. As of yesterday, I'm going off of yesterday's line, so it's kind of consistent for everybody. Baylor is favored by 20.5. So if you think that Norfolk can cover that, it's a good bet. Now, the idea being, is Baylor just going to come out and blow them out? Or does Norfolk State, you know, keep in the game, and then Baylor says, we got a one at the end, and they take the starters out, everyone gets a chance to play in the NCAA tournament, and Norfolk State covers. There's a thought. What do you think about that?
Well, that's great, but there's so many other games that you could spend your money on. I mean, if you just looking to spend money, 20 is a lot of points. It is, but defending national champions, but not really knowing enough about Norfolk State. You know, I would, if it was me, I wouldn't. There's so many other things you could do that are more sure, right? I'm a either yay or nay. I'm going to not go 50-50. I'm a guy that has at least have to be 60-40 in my favor to think about it. I don't think this is 60-40. It's a shot, and it's a super long shot. And then the other question of it is, too, when you get down to brass tactics about that money, about the point spread, how much money are you going to really make?
Well, that's the key. That's the key. Are you going to really get something out of it, or are you just going to kind of ease your way into the next game?
Yeah, and that's really it. So you're going to take a shot you're going to take an opportunity on a chance like that. That's a long shot in the first place. They could cover, but is it like, for instance, if you're going to spend $5, $10 and you get back 12, I mean, why? Why? Because here's the difference here. We can give you all the games.
You want action.
We're going to give you all the games. We're going to give you all that, whatever you want. But sometimes as a better, in my little small experience and opinion, why not go through something that's more sure that you're going to cash in? I mean, we're going to sit here all day, give you what you want. That's what you want to do. But as a better, I'm trying to be a smarter guy. Some things you need to leave alone. That's one of the games I'll leave alone. But if you want to bet 20 points, who knows what can happen. But you might as well throw a coin up in the air and find out whether or not they can cover. That's just me.
Here's another one that could be a coin toss. It depends on whose history you're going to go by. North Carolina versus Marquette on Thursday. Now, this is an 8 versus 9 game. Now, traditionally, we know the 8-9 game is kind of a coin flip. Traditionally, we know that North Carolina plays well in the tournament. Traditionally, we know that Marquette hasn't done well in the tournament recently, but their coach has, other than when he was at Texas in the last few years. So there are a lot of factors into this thing. There are a lot of things you can look at. Hubert Davis's first year in North Carolina in a tournament. Wow, young team that didn't start off that well, but played strong down the stretch. Marquette, back in the Big East, back with Shaka Smart. Shaka Smart, remember, has put VCU on the map, which put him on the map. There's so many things to look at here, so many factors. What do we narrow in on?
Well, here's what we're going to narrow in on. Certain things you just have to realize. First of all, you got 2 coaches that are really brand new to the programs, right? Shaka Smart first coming in with Marquette. Same thing with who'd you say was over the coaches? North Carolina?
Davis. Hubert Davis.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Davis. So anyway, when you see that, then if they were there both longer, that would be something you focus on. But the focus here for me is simply put, I think North Carolina has the better talent right now. They had a better talent, they're more talented. Marquette they're doing what they can with what they can. They had a lot of turnover, a lot of guys left and transferred out. Shaka Smart's just trying to put it together. They play their butts off for him. They give all that they can. But sometimes when you're in these situations, it's like going to the gym and you go, man, if we had another 6'10" dude that can handle and can shoot a jumper, hell, we could beat them. But I think realistically, and keeping it simple, I think the talent is going to win out, and I think that's where North Carolina has an edge. Because also, too, think about it, this is a North Carolina team that was a little pissed off and put Coach K in his place, sent him home with a loss in the last game of his so-called career at his own stadium. So with that alone, that tells me I think North Carolina, when they want to play, particularly in a game like this, they can get it done. So that would be the side I would fall on. Can't hear you. So yeah, that's what I would follow on.
Okay. Now, here's what I look at. We're looking at a 2.5 point spread. Again, I told you I'm not talking about spreads, but here I am talking about spreads. So there, I just lied. All right, but the 2.5 point game. Is Marquette within 2.5 points in an 8-9 game? Are they going to be that close? I think they're going to win the game. So yeah, I see that. Now, having said I'm not going to talk about spreads, here's one. If you think your team's going to win and they're the underdog, bet it, because obviously they're going to cover. Now, this is a close game. This could come down to a lot of close things. And I'm going to put it this way. You have 2 teams that aren't completely experienced. A couple guys come back for North Carolina that have experience in the tournament. But I'm looking this way. And this may be a weird way to look at it, because we went from Dean Smith to crap. And I know that name just dropped out of my head, to Roy Williams to Hubert Davis in a span of the last 50 years. And if you remember the coach's name, it was in between Roy Williams and Dean Smith. Help me, because I completely forgot his name, even though he did a nice job. Anyhow, Bill Guthridge. I'm sorry about that, Bill. So you've got 4 coaches in the last however many long. Hubert Davis is in his first year as a head coach anywhere. Hubert Davis had a nice career in the NBA, nephew of the Greyhound, the whole 9 yards. Shaka Smart knows this. If it comes down to Hubert Davis or Shaka Smart, I'm taking Shaka Smart in this. No offense to Hubert Davis in North Carolina. This is their game. This is the redefinition of Shaka Smart as a coach. He did a great job at VCU. I think there were things that were out of his control at Texas, but here's where he says, I'm going to make my Gonzaga. I'm going to make Marquette what it's supposed to be, what it used to be, the Al McGuire years and all that. And I'm going to take us to the promised land. Maybe not this year, but this is the defining game. And I think Shaka Smart says, I recognize this. And if it comes down to that call, that play, that time, boom, I take Marquette. I'm sorry.
I get that. I think that's a great analysis. And those that are with you should roll with it and put their money down. But at the end of the day, the reason why I'm coming at you totally different from a different contrast is this. The factor is that North Carolina, if you're right, if the game is close and it's within 2 points, as you mentioned, 2-3 points, I can see that. Yes, Shaka Smart has more experience. He's probably the better experienced coach. And when it comes down to the X's and O's late, if it's close, yeah, I'm with you 100%. I'd be like, oh, if you knew that, you know that, put your money down. But I don't see it that way. I don't think it's going to be close. I really don't. I think, unfortunately, Shaka Smart cannot play the game. He's not out there on the court. And I think North Carolina has more talent. I think they just came off of one of the biggest games for the year. But nobody gave them a chance in hell by beating Duke. Duke had 95, 100 players coming back for Coach K, and they got beat soundly. Coach K was so mad, he didn't know what to do. His ear, he wanted to slap everybody that was in that circle, 90 people plus. But with that being said, North Carolina they felt some kind of way, and they went over there, and Duke was a rival. So I'm just saying, I agree with what you're saying if you follow the protocol, but I think the factor is there's too much talent on North Carolina's side. It's not going to be as close as that is concerned. If it does, then you can, flip-flop it or whatever, but I don't think it's going to be that close. And because of the factor that I think there's too much talent on North Carolina's side, if Shaka Smart, and we had this game in 5 years, I'd be the first one to go, yeah, listen, I think you got a point. But this is now, and this is right now, not in the future.
Sorry, I flipped into a reference. I was going to go Van Halen, but never mind. All right, so here's where we're at. We're split on the first two games. All right, folks, who do you trust? Who do you believe in? Who do you think has got? Oh, that's now we're getting to Bill Cosby. Okay. Anyhow, looking at the next game. Well, it was anyhow. Groucho Marx to Bill Cosby. Anyhow, all right. Looking at the next game in this bracket. The 5-12 game, St. Mary's versus the winner of Wyoming, Indiana, which was Indiana. This is interesting because of a couple of things. One, I think from a big school perspective and what we see on TV, we are more familiar, you and I and most people, with Indiana than we are with St. Mary's. Now, I'm on the West Coast now, so I've seen St. Mary's play a few times, mostly against Gonzaga, which has been a mixed bag. They played well and they played poorly. Well, not poorly. The results have been different. But we went on record as saying the other day, at least I did, that this is an Indiana team that with a couple of players playing well, they could make a deep run. But they've got to get past this game. And we're looking at the last few years, and I don't have the stat exactly in front of me, but I believe it's been 3 or 4 teams that have played in the play-in game have made it to the Final Four in the last decade or so. So that's a possibility. It's not a stone-cold lock that this team in the play-in game that played in the first 4 is fodder for just getting slaughtered. It's a possibility Indiana takes a deep run. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure they're going to take a deep run because if they win this, more than likely they had to play UCLA. And I think that'd be a tall order for them. So I'm not sure of deep run. But in regards to this game, I think that they have a hell of a shot. One, because of the factor that where they came from. Okay, they played a tough Wyoming team, and Wyoming gave them all that they had. Indiana had a couple people hurt, but then they had cats that step up like Geronimo, besides Davis, and they just played well. They're very scrappy. They're very physical. They're reminiscent of their coach, Mike Woodson. They just get in your face. They're probably cussing each other out and playing very hard-nosed basketball, and they have an attitude. And I know that St. Mary's comes from the conference with Gonzaga. They beat Gonzaga, but they like to get up and down. It's kind of more of a cute type situation where they're feeling real good about themselves. But Indiana's a Midwestern team. It's a real Big Ten team. And if you're shooting well, and you play well, you're shooting your shots, you can beat Indiana because they're prone to mistakes and whatnot. But Indiana is nasty. They want to play nasty basketball. They want to get in your face. They want to push you down. They want to bump your chest. They want to get physical.
Right.
And I don't know about all that. They just want to get physical with you. But with all that being said, I think Indiana's playing with an attitude as well. So they won the game in Dayton. That was the first step. Now they're going to St. Mary's. It's like, okay, we can get them too. So I think Indiana might have the upper hand because of, as you mentioned, teams that have come out of the first four. A couple of them have made a nice little run because I think a lot of those teams that came out have had the mindset of we have nothing to lose, and I think that's what Indiana has right now.
Well, and this is where we're going to say, okay, great, sounds fantastic. Absolutely, you're right. However, I like St. Mary's for a couple of reasons. One, they earned a number 5 seed as opposed to hoping for a number 5 seed. Maybe even were hoping for a better seed than that. Mm-hmm. They've played a solid season. They've played in those tournaments. They've played those preseason non-conference games that everyone has been saying in the last few years the WCC doesn't play. They've played that. The idea that Gonzaga will play anywhere, anytime, some of the other teams in that conference have gone to the same thing. And to the point where now they're not getting as many games, not because they didn't attempt to get them, because people are shying away from it. So they're playing in these preseason tournaments, the Maui Classics and so on and so forth. So they have experience doing that. They have experienced players that have been to the dance before. This isn't their first shot here. This is almost, and not making the comparison at all, but this is almost where Gonzaga was when they started making their run. Now we're here again. We've seen this before. This is nothing new to us. We've made the trip. We've been on the plane. We've got to the venue. We did it last year, the year before that. We did the year before that. The only obstacle we run across on a season basis is that team in Spokane. Other than that, we're ready to roll. Randy Bennett can coach his butt off. He's been doing this for a while. This is an experienced team that knows what they're doing. Love Mike Woodson. I saw something a few hours ago on the maidens he's broken for coaching with the Hawks, with this team, with that team, how he's gotten them in the playoffs when they hadn't been in the playoffs and so on and so forth. So he can coach his butt off, and he's an alum, which means something, especially at Indiana, because he was one of those that carried on the legacy from that undefeated season and those players back in the late 70s, early 80s. So he is ready to go. I get that. But I think that St. Mary's is just solid right now. They're prepared for this. I think for Indiana, it's going to be, because this is their first time in the dance for 5 years? So none of these players have played, to my knowledge, unless they're transfers, have played in this venue. And it is a different thing. Don't let people fool you. It's like, it's just another game. You've been there. It's a different kind of setting. It's just different. And they've got to be ready to play right off the bat, because I think St. Mary's is going to come out, and they like to score the ball too. I think St. Mary's comes out and establishes early, and they keep things going. Now, I don't have the spread right in front of me, but, maybe there's a chance for Indiana to cover the spread. I really don't know. But here's what I'm going to say. If Indiana can pull this one off and they get their feet under them, they can make a deep run. They can. But I think this is St. Mary's game to win. So
interesting. The only thing, my last point on this, because we got to keep moving on these games. My only point is this: besides Gonzaga, name me a quality win they have.
Nothing jumps out at me. I mean, San Francisco. I know what you mean. Right.
That's and I'm gonna leave it right there for the people. And then, like you said, people make your decision.
Okay. Well, while you're talking about the next thing, I'm going to go back and look at that. Just because I think it's interesting to see exactly what we're talking about. And you're probably right. They haven't won a lot of huge games. But I'll cover that in a second here. All right, moving on to the next game. This is the fun of this, because we're going to come up with a couple of other things. You mentioned UCLA. UCLA Thursday versus Akron, the 4-13 game. Now, this is the Pac-12 against the MAC. What do you think?
Well, the thing about it is I like Akron. Akron plays real hard. They give you all that they have, and I think they will really be up for the challenge against UCLA. The problem is that Mick Cronin, formerly of University of Cincinnati, has been in the Midwest for a long time prior to hitting UCLA. They had a great run last year. He does not want to get embarrassed by a team from Ohio where he used to coach, and he probably grabbed a lot of he probably would not recruit some of the players that played for Akron because he thought he was, allegedly probably better than them when they were beneath him, his program. Right. So I find I have a hard time believing he's going to let his players go off of this, because one of the things that's been happening, they've been struggling UCLA a little bit this year, but he's been trying to turn them around, trying to get in their minds and trying to get them to play hard. So with that being said, I think that's going to be enough for UCLA. I don't think they all want to walk away in the first round game where they fall to Akron. Not saying it cannot happen, because UCLA has been up and down at times, but I think they have enough talent. And then with the madness and the over-the-top coaching style of Mick Cronin screaming at you when you come off the floor, right, I think that's going to be enough to push them over and be like, man, I just wish he would stop screaming. So with that being said, I think that's enough for UCLA to win this game along with your talent.
Well, I'm going to take a step back in time because I did a little research here, and you made a valid point. Quality wins for St. Mary's, Notre Dame, I guess you might say Oregon, even though they didn't make the tournament, and they lost to Wisconsin. That's their real – and a loss to Colorado State. That is their outside the conference really schedule. So you got a good point that maybe they're not seasoned enough to do anything. So it's always nice to do some research when you have a chance. So cool. All right, going back to the Mick Cronin thing. Here's the thing, and I agree with you 100%. That's one of those coaches I'd say, Coach, just tell me what you want me to do. Quit yelling at me. Quit spitting on me. That's not his style. His style is to get emotional, get crazy. And I don't think, from watching their team, I don't think that they have those kind of players, those kind of crazy, oh, yeah, let's go to the wall for Mick kind of players, just by watching them play a few times. Not that they don't play hard, not that they don't try, but I just don't see that being their forte of let's just go whatever. It's like, look, give me the ball and let me roll. So I like Akron. I like Akron in an upset, if you want to call it that. Akron's got a nice squad. Again, it's the MAC. MAC plays good ball, and I think that people overlook that. Maybe we're Ohio biased on that, but the MAC plays good ball. So this is a team that I think can come out and get something done. They've got to come out early, though. Again, I think when you're the underdog, you've got to come out early and come out strong. But UCLA, I think, is a team that with exactly what you said, they get slapped in the face a little bit. They go, whoa, what happened? Now they come to the bench and get yelled at. Now they go back out there and the guy outplays and he goes back to the bench and get yelled at. I was like, I've had enough of this. And I won't say they'll check out, but it's going to be like they're fighting two opponents. I think Akron's going to say, ha-ha, we got you. They're going to take advantage of it. Now, again, if we're going to look at it from the point of view of how does this work out on the betting side of things, and I'm going to try and fight it here, UCLA was favored by 14.5. No matter what you think of the outcome, to me, that's too big. I don't think Akron was going to be able to cover that. So what do you think about the spread on that?
No, I mean, I can see that. I mean, Akron, if they come out and play good basketball because they earn the right to be there, I think they can probably cover that spread. But again, UCLA is very talented. You saw what they did last year. They lost some guys, but they still have opportunity to really get after you when they're on. It's like they ambush you because they're that talented. Because we know we saw last year with them making the run and at the last minute, losing the game and stuff like that, almost making the finals. They have a lot of those guys returning, and the way that they play against the USCs of the world and the Arizonas at times, they can step up a little bit. So they can get hot, and that could be a problem because they go a 10-on run real quick because they have a couple future NBA players on that team. So that's my only concern with Akron. Akron cannot afford to make any mistakes or not a lot of mistakes in order to stay in the game and cover that spread. Because before you blink your eyes and turn around, you could be down by 15. That's how good UCLA is compared to Akron, I think.
And yeah, I think that's a good point because they're going to have to fight against that talent. but I've seen enough games from UCLA where sometimes that talent doesn't know. And it's usually when someone – it's like we already talked about in the boxing show. When you go out and you hit the bully in the face, how does the bully react? Sometimes the bully doesn't react that well when it's UCLA. So we'll see how that plays out. All right, moving to the bottom of the bracket now. These are the Friday games. Well, not all Friday games. You know, I forget that the pod thing is still kind of a thing that plays into things. But let's look at it this way. The 6-11 game, Texas versus Virginia Tech. This is on Friday. Virginia Tech won the ACC, and they're still an 11 seed. What does that tell you?
Well, I mean, they got out at the right time, you know, and I think that's what it was for them. They play a different kind of basketball. They don't play the most glamorous of basketball, but the upper hand, the thing they may have over Texas is the fact that Texas is so up and down. Butch Beard came over from Texas Tech and tried to turn things around. Is that right? Did I say Butch Beard? Or Chris
Beard, yeah.
Is it Chris Beard?
Chris Beard.
Daddy,
funny how we do those things, doesn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, Chris Beard. Anyway, Butch Beard probably be a better team. Chris Beard. But so with that being said, Chris Beard came over from Texas Tech and put his defensive strategy, and they play real hard. But at times they struggle. They struggle to score the ball, and he's trying to make it happen like he's turn the switch on right away, and things are going to magically work for him. I think that's going to be a problem because Texas has really struggled this year overall. In a couple of years, I think Chris Beard will have them right where they need to be. But I think Virginia Tech has played so many teams in their conference where they had to overcome a lot. And you look at the way that they had to come back to even get to that point. So I think they're like, we have a no fear type attitude. And I think that'll be enough for them to defeat Texas. So
they've been playing, a couple of things what you said, which is really amazing. You're right. Texas has struggled, yet they're still 6 seed. So that tells you what people think about what they've done before, what they did with Shaka Smart the year before, and that talent is still coming back, and B, the strength of schedule and all that stuff. When you watch them play, it's like, okay, this is a team that should be able to make a deep run. Virginia Tech, on the other hand, has been playing their last game maybe for the last 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Not just the ACC final, but the 2, maybe 3 games leading up to that. If they don't win those games, they may not be here. So it's interesting to see if you're already in that mindset that we're playing with nothing to lose and we're playing with house money and have been doing it for a while, and we're playing a team that may not be the hottest right now. This is a perfect time to be primed for an upset, I think. And even if, let's go back to the numbers again, folks. If I can find it on the paper real quick, trying to scan. It's a 6-11 game. Did I say that right? 6-11 game? Mm-hmm. And Texas is favored by 1.5. I think that tells you all you need to know what the odds makers think. I think that it's Virginia Tech. I think that they win this game. They most definitely cover, obviously, if they win the game. But I think they win by maybe a half dozen.
Yeah. Well, that's the point, because you mentioned that it's 6-11. You mentioned that they put Texas as 6 seed, but they only have a point. Virginia Tech's only point underdog. So if you're really looking at it from that standpoint, why isn't Texas? Why aren't they with a heavier favor? That tells you that the odds makers are like, we kind of know what's going on. They fell in love with Chris Beard, came over, and all this other stuff. So they're playing it as if Texas is ready. But until Texas proved differently, they're going to go with the upset. And I think that's what people are looking at it right now. So that's why you can't make any money on this unless you do it straight up. And we're telling you this is going to be the one of the ones that you want to select as your upset, 6-11 Virginia Tech over Texas.
Yeah. And like you said, how much of an upset is it? But like by the seeding, it's an upset, right?
Yeah. So that's all we can go off of, because the committee wants to make the numbers.
Right. And then they flip them around when it gets to the sportsman. Okay, looking at the 3-14 game, which has usually been a pretty good game most of the time. Sometimes it's a blowout, but sometimes it's a really good game. It's Purdue versus Yale. Now, let's get the whole they're playing the Ivy League thing out of the way, was whatever it was. It's, Ivy League doesn't get enough credit for the ball they play. I get that. That's cool. But what do you think of Purdue versus Yale? What do you think of the chances of anything untoward happening here?
Well, I mean, the part of it is, I mean, if Yale comes out and they play, depending on what kind of basketball they play, you know, they play defense and can bang. I'm not sure they're the kind of team that is going to give Purdue problems. Purdue has a couple big folks that really are really nice. You got Eddie, the big fella, and he does well. They have a guy coming off the bench as backup, where they could be really interchangeable. You have the quickness on the court in Ivy that really get things done. And then other than that, they just really have talented athletes. One thing about Purdue is they're very physical. They like to push you around. They like to bang. They like to get up and down. They like to run and take advantage. So my question is Yale going to be ready for all of that? The one thing that Yale could have the upper hand on, it could work in their favor if they can score points and score with consistency. That's my only question there. We're being a 14 seed. Can you score with consistency? Because one thing that is a chink in the armor of Purdue or an Achilles heel is Purdue at times is very lackadaisical or laxed in their defensive efforts. So you can outscore them, but the problem is, though, they sometimes have a better physical matchup than their opponents with like a 7-footer out there, quickness, so many things. They literally outman their opponents. That if you can score the baskets against Purdue or try to outrun them, then there's a chance you can beat them. But the question is, how does Yale's lineup match up with Purdue?
And we know traditionally that they're going to be a 3-point shooting team more than likely. They're going to try and spread the floor, open the floor, and get those bigs lost on the floor. Can you do that? Can you make it basically a run and gun kind of game? I don't think that they're built that way. I don't think that that's the way they play. They may score because of shooting threes, but I don't think they're just going to go zip, zip, zip. It's going to be ball movement. But they're going to have to get those two bigs out of the way. And though if you do that, that plays into Ivy's way of the way he wants to play. He wants to get up and down and get athletic. So, you know, it's how do you make it work? You take the bigs out of the game and let Ivy shine? Because if you take the bigs out of the game by doing that, or try to, then Ivy's going to probably have 35 because it's going to be the game he wants to play. But if you slow it down and try and do it the other way, then the bigs are going to go crazy and you can't guard them. You just can't. You don't have that kind of size. And those two bigs are talented. Now, they don't play them a lot in the rotation at the same time, but if they decide to do that and go high-low, you're toast. I don't think that Yale or too many other teams in the tournament have a chance to really stick with that. So I looked at it. What was it? It's 16.5 for Purdue. I think that's a done deal. Mm-hmm. So as you mentioned, you know, there are ways we can look at this where are you going to be able to find a game to make $1 off of? You might make $1 off of this, and that's about it. So as far as a betting line is concerned, again, we preface this by saying we're not the betting gurus. But if I'm taking my money down to the book, this is a game I kind of go, I'll bet the money line and walk away. I don't think I'm going to make a lot off of this. This may be one of those parlay picks you put in, one of those games that you know is going to happen. But I wouldn't go so far as to say, yeah, Yale's going to end up covering and, only lose by 12. I don't see that happen. I believe this is a blowout by Purdue. No matter what the money says, it's going to be ugly because they're a team I believe people are talking about Iowa getting to the finals or to the Final Four. This is a team I think is built to get there. There are a couple of chinks short, like you mentioned, but the bigs and an Ivy are a lethal combination.
No doubt. So, I mean, like you said, it just depends on as they move forward. If they do move forward, the matchup, who do they play, and how they come at it. Again, like I said, when they play a team that really matches their caliber, I think the one thing has been the Achilles heel for Purdue again has been their lack of defense. And you would think that would not be a hard thing to do with a 7-footer and some experience, and then the coach, the way that the Painter, the way he pushes those guys, but they've had lapses because you would think that this was a team that maybe would have ran away with the Big Ten, but they really didn't. So it tells you something.
It also tells you how tough the Big Ten was too.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
All right, going to the 7-10 game, another one of those really kind of games that usually pops up on your bracket. Murray State versus San Francisco. I don't even know how to begin to describe this one. So I'm going to let you start because this one is going to be interesting, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, you think about San Francisco and how they got there, trying to get through to the tournament. And you said to yourself, are they ready for the big time? Because they haven't been there in a while. That we know. We know they came out and they finally made it. They're very excited about being there. But then again, you flip on the other side, you have a Murray State team that, not particularly just this one team, but Murray State the school itself has had some experience in the tournament. They've upset a couple of people in the past. And then there's a reason why they got the 7th seed, right? You mentioned before about number 5. Who had, you mentioned about St. Mary's having a 5 seed,
right?
Which I thought was a little high. But I think actually Murray State actually earned the 7th seed. So I think with that being said, that Murray State earned their way. Not saying San Francisco didn't, but they earned their way. They're going to really be pumped up. They usually have pretty good guard play at Murray State. They kind of come at you a certain kind of way. And the question is the moment going to be too big for San Francisco? I mean, you finally made it. The lights are on. You're all excited. They called your name. Now we got to play. And that's the way I want to look at it. If I had to choose a team right now, based on what I know and I understand, and watching San Francisco, I think San Francisco, did they win? They actually won there. Did they win it?
They lost in the
final
tournament to Gonzaga. Yeah.
Yeah. So they lost. But with that being said, I'm still gonna go with Murray State. I think Murray State is just probably a more balanced overall team. I hate to put down the teams that go out west and play the Gonzagas of the world, but you just kind of go wondering, you're like, and you mentioned about Gonzaga losing to St. Mary's. I wonder when was the last time that Gonzaga actually lost to a team besides a Brigham Young out there, that type on that level.
I think it's been a while. They haven't gone undefeated in the conference repeatedly, so they're usually losing to a St. Mary's or Brigham Young. I think there was a San Francisco game sprinkled in there maybe a couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken. But usually it's dominant for them. But the one thing that I've noticed about that conference, the West Coast Conference, is that some of the other teams have moved up because they've had to up their talent level. They've had to up their play because even though they're losing to Gonzaga, they're losing to the number 1 team of the nation. So they have gotten better. And BYU, for example, when they joined the league, St. Mary's, Santa Clara, some of those teams have gotten better. Some of them, Pepperdine, and some of the teams have just stayed at the level they were at. But a lot of them, San Francisco being one, is a very good team. They've done very well. Now I have to look at their out of conference like we were talking about and see what they did out of conference. But in conference, they've done better. They fared better. And, it's like saying, hey, I lost to Gonzaga, but I didn't lose by 40 this time. We lost by 12. That's saying something. But again, I think you're right. I don't think that the stage will be too bright for them because they've been playing on that stage now for the last couple of years, playing against Gonzaga. Granted, it's twice a year or maybe 3 times depending upon the tournament. But I don't think it's where they're going to say, we're not ready for this. But it's also Murray State is ready for this. And I think their legacy for the last 5-6 years is greater, or maybe longer than that, is greater than San Francisco's. You can say, well, they won it with Bill Russell back in 1812. Yeah, okay, you could go that far. But Murray State is like, look, we know what it's like to get here. We play well in our conference. We play well in our non-conference. We're a ranked team during the course of the season. We're ready to roll. And like I said, it's a 7 seed. I would think that Murray State, if you went apples to apples, probably deserve to be a higher seed than this. So I think this is Murray State all day, all night. And I think it's going to be bigger than what I'm looking at here, which was, now I just lost it on the paper. Again, folks, bear with us. I'm looking on like 17 different sheets of stuff at the same time here. 1.5. Am I reading that right? And actually, San Francisco's favored by 1.5. Take Murray State and run, folks. Take Murray State and run. I don't see that happening. I don't. And again, I know we have an upset in this game, and this is the upset game. The 7-10 game, this is one of those upset games, but take Murray State and run. I don't see this happening. So if you're looking for your money pick of the bracket, this is one of them, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. Murray State plays real hard. You know how they come at you. Pretty solid program. Like I said, they usually have strong guard play. San Francisco is kind of, like I said, they're new to the game. Unless they have a dynamite team, Argentine's team, when they come out and they haven't been there in a while, it takes a special effort for them to do it. And I'm not sure that's going to happen for them this time. And I might be wrong. So that's why I'm looking at Murray State.
Okay. All right. Now we've got the 2:15 game, Kentucky and St. Peter's. I'm not sure what to say. Is this the Kentucky team that maybe isn't that good, or is this a team that has been overvalued during the course of the season? I've seen them play a few times and they've looked really good. I've seen them play a few times they look really average. It depends on Tshiebwe, and if you can stand up to Tshiebwe, you got a shot. But that's a tall order this year, literally a tall order, because you're gonna have to have a tall player to do it. St. Peter's coming out of the idea that we're happy to be here. Are they just happy to be here, and let's just move on past it?
I think they'll play hard. I really do. But I think, the way that it's been now lately with the type of talent and the ups and downs that with the not having all the best recruits, Calipari has kind of changed the game up a little bit the way he coaches. And it's not so much that we got to be dominant the whole season. It's about we just need to be ready when it's time. And it is time now. And I think that you see the way that they've been progressing as a team lately during the season, it says that they're getting better. So the team that you saw earlier in the season going, I don't know about the Kentucky that can go up and then let you down real quick. I think it's a different team now. I think they're getting ready. Calipari has emphasized that it's time to get ready for March. March is here. And with that being said, that's where St. Peter's will have a major problem, because now he's telling them, the guys too on this roster, the ones that get ready for the league, this is how you showcase your talent. You want people to watch you? This is the time. Raise your game up. And I think that's going to be enough for Kentucky.
I think that the way the SEC has played this year, and maybe the last couple of years, do you think that it helps Kentucky? Because remember, just not too long ago, they just kind of would walk through Tennessee. They'd walk through Vanderbilt. They'd walk through Auburn. It was Alabama. It wasn't a big deal. But when you start looking at the SEC the way it's constructed now, with Auburn, with Tennessee, with Alabama, with Arkansas, with teams that can actually ball now, that across the board, even Mississippi State aren't. I'm sorry, wrong idea there. But they're not soft touches anymore. Vanderbilt is not a soft touch anymore. You got to go in these places and play. So does that toughen them up, or are they used to being, as Calipari used to be in the front runner, saying, let's go walk through whoever else and then we'll collect the hardware at the end? I think it helps them, but I don't know. Maybe it doesn't.
No, I think it helps. I mean, because when you're battle tested, and that's what you want. I mean, you look at how Gonzaga ran through everything last year, right? And they never lost. And then when they faced a lot of adversity versus UCLA, they were starting to question whether or not they were going to be okay. They tried to get back on track. And Baylor, on the flip side, had nothing to lose. So Gonzaga started playing not to lose instead of playing to win. So I think adversity is a good thing. Like, it's good to have it now, which I think is good for Gonzaga too. They finally lost a game early on, a couple games. But in this situation with Kentucky, when the conference is better and you're in a position, as long as you don't have to see somebody from your conference, and right now they do not have to worry about that. They don't have to worry about anybody in their bracket. I mean, as far as in their bracket, that side where they will play from their conference, so they can move on out to, the Final Four. So if that's what it comes down to. So I think that's very helpful for them, because when you play that schedule, that level of competition where you're always banging, it's going to take a superb effort from a team to come after you. And I think that's what Calipari has an upper hand.
Okay. All right, let's move to the next bracket, and we'll go to the South. And we'll start with the number. We're just going to go right from the top down. On Friday, Arizona versus the winner of Wright State and Bryant. Now, I'm not going to say too much about that game, even though I think it's getting ready to tip here in a moment. But let's look at Arizona for a bit. And I know we weren't really planning on doing down the road stuff. But this is an Arizona team that I find interesting. Again, being on the coast, I've seen them play a couple of times. You know, we mentioned, you know, the absence of Sean Miller and all that good fun stuff. Is this a team that first of all, they're a legitimate number one seed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. The way they play now is different than the way they played the last couple of years. I mean, I don't know if it's effort. I don't know if it's intelligence. They seem to be a better basketball unit this year than I've seen in the past. It's usually a collection of individuals trying to get put together as a basketball team. This looks like a basketball team.
Yeah, I think part of it too, and is they are finally, you know, they have been released from the realm of the Miller umbrella, right? Because that was a different kind of thing. I think it's refreshing for a few guys too, playing a different kind of brand with a new face, new voice, and it's working for them. Because if it wasn't, they wouldn't be able to win them games that they did. And they've been dominant at times. They've used a lot of the talent, the size that they normally usually have. And it seems like guys are having fun playing basketball again. So, yeah, and they don't, you know, you really don't hear about all of the scandals that was under it before. They just out there playing ball. And, you know, not worrying about whether or not some 7'1" dude got his $48,000 check so he can play off his grandmother's life insurance annuity, something to that effect. You know, guys are coming out playing basketball. And it shows them with their effort on the court and what they've been able to do in that league this year.
Now moving on to the Big East versus the Big 12. Number 8 versus number 9. Number 8 is Seton Hall. Number 9 is TCU. What do you think here? Let me throw a little something into this because a former Big East, then ACC or wherever Pitt was in, Jamie Dixon had a nice run at Pitt. And since he's left Pitt hasn't fared too well. So you can't say it was just him, but that has something to do with it. If he goes elsewhere and the program suffers, maybe he was the one responsible for the program being tough. Now he's at TCU building something, and we look at number 8, Seton Hall. Is Jamie Dixon the straw that stirs the drink in this game, or is there more to it than just the coaching?
No, I think there's more to it because I think TCU, the team, you still had to go out there and play. And I think right. they won some key games. The Big 12 is a hell of a conference this year.
Right.
It's very tough. And the factor that I thought they would have a few more teams in there, but they've been playing some solid basketball, a lot of competition in the Big 12. And the factor that they've been making moves, I think is more than that. But I think Jamie Dixon is a huge reason why they've been successful. And I think part of it too is having been on the East Coast, having been at Pitt, is going to help his team defeat Seton Hall because he knows what that's like. He knows what those type of teams, what kind of way they're going to bring to the table, and he knows what the game plan is going to be for them. And I think he's going to be able to help TCU get over the hump. So I think this is, in fact, I think I had looked at Seton Hall earlier as my pick, and then it dawned on me when I started reading through it. I said, oh, damn, that's right, Jamie Dixon down there. And I was like, that changed the whole outlook because he wants the best out of his players. He demands a lot, but the results are great because you listen to him, he can coach. So I think that's an extra bonus for them. So and I think that's enough for them to get past Seton Hall.
It's funny when you look at Seton Hall and the Big East in general. And Kevin Willard's been at Seton Hall now for, I think, about a decade now. And when the whole Big East crumble happened and everyone was scrambling to figure out what was happening, they rebuilt the pieces and said, we're going to go back to being a basketball league again, which was, I think, genius on their part because that's where they made their hay back in the late 70s, early 80s. That was what happened. It's like we built this basketball league and we focused on that. So they brought in, the teams, the Marquettes of the world, the Creightons of the world, said we're going to be a basketball league and that's all we're going to focus on. Cool. Kevin Willard's been there for a while. Good coach, a nice little resume. He started young. He's still in his early 40s, if I'm not mistaken. And he started there. His dad, I think it was Ralph Willard, who had a nice run as a coach for several years, decades actually. So he's off of that coaching tree. The Big East is playing solid now. It's not the Big East I have to see the Big Monday days of back in the past, but they still play solid ball. So I guess the question in my mind is the Big East back enough that we can look at them playing against a team out of their conference and say, Big East ball is enough for them to be able to be ready for this. And I go with where you went. I think the Big 12 ball is better, preparing you better for the tournament than the Big East ball. But if we look at the numbers, or at least by the spread, I think Seton Hall, if I'm not mistaken, is actually favored in this game, favored by 1.5 points. And again, that was yesterday when I got the sheets. I was going to go check it out today, but I thought, let's see what the morning line, the early line actually meant, because the lines are adjusted now because of the bets, because of the people, because of morons like myself. I think the initial lines were made based on what the odds makers thought it was going to be. And now it's changed because of how the money's come in. So we're sticking with the odds that came in from Monday. Actually, I got these on Monday after the draw, and we're going to go with that. But again, they favored Seton Hall, even though TCU is I got this backwards again. TCU is the 9th seed, Seton Hall is the 8th pick, so they favored Seton Hall. So that being said, I'm with you. I go with TCU on this one.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, it's just that point of Jamie Dixon, the schedule that they played, and the way that the conference has been strong this year. I mean, you saw a lot of things in that conference this year. So with that being said, that's how I would see it, TCU.
Okay, let's keep on moving here. This is interesting for the reason that I'm not sure how the world, or at least the college basketball world, sees Houston. So this is the 5-12 game on Friday, Houston versus UAB, Alabama, Birmingham. I'm not sure exactly what we think Houston is, because there was a while there that Houston was in the top 5, top 10 of the country. And then it kind of fell back. And again, it's conference versus conference. Which conference has got you better prepared to play in this tournament? I'm going to look up a couple things while I'm thinking about that. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at UAB that has been making some noise early on over the years with Coach Kennedy's still over there, right? They haven't got rid of him yet. So Coach Kennedy was trying to make a name for himself over there, doing pretty good. And we know what his resume was prior to that, where he was at. But you look at Houston. Houston, the reason why I'm looking at Houston from a certain kind of standpoint is Houston lost a couple players early on, if I'm not mistaken. They lost some players to injury, and they found a way to kind of come back from that. And they still been moving around banging. And then not only that, the most impressive thing for me lately has been the fact that they ended up playing Memphis in the championship game for the conference championship. And I thought Memphis would kind of, give them a run, and they beat them by like 20.
Right.
And so that shows me that Houston was like, you know what? Yeah, you might think we hurt or we're a little down. And then, the coach is kind of no nonsense as well. So with that attitude, and we're going to really kind of get up in these guys real quick and handle business. And I think that's going to be the attitude here against the UAB. So they're not going to take any prisoners, so to speak. And I think that alone is going to propel Houston in this matchup because they have a lot to prove. Like I said, they started off early, lost 2 key guys, and they struggled a little bit. Now they kind of got their footing with them right now. And they usually do well unless they end up playing a team that's a little bit bigger than them or outmatches them. But it has nothing to do – you think about what they did last year too. They made a nice little run. They made a nice little run. Even a couple years ago, should I say. They made a nice little run a couple years ago. So with that perspective, it's going to take a serious team, a team that really is either a better talented team, more physical than them, to outplay them. But they're going to work their butts off, and I think that's going to be enough for them to get the victory.
I think that Houston, and I'm going to focus more on Kelvin Sampson than I am on Houston. And we've seen Kelvin Sampson for years now. First at, I believe it was Washington State, then at Indiana, then at Oklahoma, or I may have those backwards, I'm sorry. And then I think he took a couple years in the league, and then he ends up at Houston. And my thing with Kelvin Sampson has always been his teams play hard, his teams play smart, but they don't always play well when it matters. And I can't say that's him, but when I see them in the big game, something happens. I don't know what it is. It's just something that's like, they don't finish. Now, I don't think that's a factor in this game. I think that they're going to be head and shoulders above UAB, and UAB is playing for, I don't know, the next conference, the next game. I don't know what's going on in that league and all of Conference USA and the AAC, and who knows what's going on there. Not that I don't think that matters to the kids when they're on the court, but there is some of that. Who are you playing for? How did you get here? What are you representing? That kind of thing. So I think that it looks like Houston is going to be able to prevail in this game, I think. Trying to look at what it's actually going to pay out if you bet that game correctly. 8.5 for Houston. 8.5 point favorite for Houston. I would take Houston in the points with this one. I would. I think they're going to cover that. I think that this is a first-round game where it's a Kelvin Sampson first-round game. They're going to play strong the first game. It's when, again, they have to really step up their pace down the road where they think they're going to struggle. But I think they'll be okay in this
one. No doubt. And I think that's Kelvin said, I want to say Kelvin Wilkes and Kelvin Sampson, everybody.
Kevin Edwards.
Ralph Sampson, everybody, but Ralph Simpson. Anyway, but I think the coach is going to have a major play in this and get his guys fired up, and they should advance.
All right. Here is the one, folks. If you have listened to anything I've said over the course of the last month or so, and I don't mean to be disparaging, but this is the way I see this. Number 4, Illinois versus number 13, Chattanooga on Friday. Well, you start with it, and I'll kind of chime in on what I've been harping on for the last few months. You might have had to be privy to some private conversations, but I'm going to make them public now.
Well, we already know where you're going. I'm not going to spoil your surprise, but Illinois goes as the big center goes, Kofi C. And they have been trying to get guard play. They had the one guard was out for a while, had the concussion protocol, and they had a couple other guys that could play, and their coach was Coach Underwood. Coach Underwood is really kind of hard-nosed, kind of very boisterous, kind of loud in your face type coach, and expects a lot from these guys, and they play real hard. But it's more or less like, and we said it before, that Kofi C can be a bully, and he comes at you and he wants to run you over and he wants to put you on the ground. But then the other team, the opponent, has to counteract that. And for a while, Illinois runs real well. You thought they were going to make a run. In fact, they're a 4th seed here. There was a chance that they had a chance to really win all the Big Ten by themselves. But then, they kind of fell back a little bit and with a couple losses. And a lot of it, too, is, which is why I thought if they had, I'm trying to think of the guard's name that plays for the Bulls now. If they had him, I think his experience would have helped them coming back. I think he really would have helped them because he can kind of settle the team. But everybody knows it's Kofi's team right now, and everybody's kind of playing around him. And sometimes that's a great thing, but sometimes it can hurt him because he's swatting and dunking and slamming and in your face. But that's what I think that the word is. But I still think they have – it just depends on what Chattanooga does. What do they bring to the table? Is there a fear factor for Chattanooga? Or can they just come in and match up and do what they're supposed to do and play heads up? Then I can think it would be a solid game. But if they allow Kofi to kind of get loose and start blocking shots and goaltending shots like a la old Patrick Ewing, just for fashion piece and the face value, it's a different ball game. But the question is, will Chattanooga rise up and face the bully, or will they walk away and be intimidated?
Well, and there's the big factor right there, because he is a big bully, and we mean that with the utmost respect. I mean, that's who he is, and that's how he gets the job done. There's nothing dirty about what he does. There's nothing other than he's just a big physical player. But he's not, in my mind, a very skilled player. And if you can make him become a skilled player, meaning you don't let him get the ball 4 feet from the hoop, you make him get the ball 8 feet from the hoop and have to make a move or hit a jump hook or something. Not that he can't do that, but I'd rather have him shooting from 6 or 7 feet than dunking on everything. So if you can do that, and that comes down to their bigs, and Chattanooga really doesn't have what you would call traditional bigs, that would be something. And Chattanooga's not a fantastic three-point shooting team, but they can spread the floor. And their leading scorer is one of their guards, obviously, Malachi Smith. So that's an impressive thing right there, where they can actually get out and move around and get Kofi out of his comfort zone. If you can do that, like you mentioned, the rest of the team hasn't stepped up to Kofi's level yet. And this is one of those, again, this is more of a preference on myself than I think anything else, but when push comes to shove and you're not sure where you're supposed to be and what's going on, and Brad Underwood starts yelling and screaming at you, he means it. He means well by that. But it's like, in the moment, Coach, I got enough to worry about. I don't need you inside my head going crazy. And we've seen the way, and again, not that he's a bad coach, but we've seen how he reacts on the sideline. And when the guy comes off the floor, it's like, ah! It's like, well, I didn't learn much from that exchange, Coach. Thanks a lot. So that may be a tough thing. I look at this game as kind of what you said. This is a Kofi Cobra game. And if Kofi can get it going, there is no way in the world Chattanooga can win this game. It's not. He's the big bully. But I take Chattanooga simply for the fact that I think that they can get him out of sorts because they've had a chance to scout him. This is what we were talking about the other day. Who gets to scout whom? If you can scout Illinois, you know what Illinois is going to do. You've seen them play against the tough competition. You've seen them playing against Iowa, Purdue, Ohio State, Michigan. They're not going to change much from that. That's how they're going to be. Chattanooga, on the other hand, you've seen them play against Liberty and other schools like that. You don't know who they are. You don't know who they are really when you get up against them because you've never seen them play against who you think they should play. Against the Murrays and the Sanfords and the Citadels of the world, you have no frame of reference. So they may play a completely different game because of who they're playing. In conference, their games may be different than what they'll play out of conference. I don't know. But I see Chattanooga being able to get at least open up the game enough to where Coburn has to do more than I think he's comfortable doing. So in the first real upset of the thing, drum roll, please. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Chattanooga straight up, not just against the spread. Spread 7.5, which is actually kind of surprising. Straight up Chattanooga over Illinois.
Wow. And now has begun.
Now it has begun. Let the floodgates open. All right. So as we get from that one, now we've got Colorado State, Michigan. 6 seed against 11 seed. Colorado State, we haven't heard of too much of outside of that conference, outside of the West Coast. Michigan, on the other hand, I just had a conversation about Michigan with a Michigan fan a few hours ago. And it all came down to Hunter Dickinson. Can he play? Can he not play? Is he soft? Is he not soft? Basically what they said was, we've got season tickets. Some games he shows up, some games he doesn't. Not always because of him, from what we've said, that it's the guard play as well. But when your big man has the ability to step out and shoot threes and can go in and be dominant with either hand inside and then disappears in games, is this the game he disappears?
Well, I think Coach Howard coming back, they're playing with emotion and trying to play out straight adrenaline, and it didn't work. That's why they got eliminated so quickly in the Big Ten tournament, plus some good teams in Big Ten. So I'll go with that. But I think having time to go back home, go back to the drawing board, really get back into the locker room, and Coach Howard can kind of put the guys up under, his wing again, get back to coaching way their day coaching. I think that gives them an advantage. And Michigan is talented. Everybody's talking about Hunter Dickinson and whatnot. He is very talented. But they have some other people that can play on that team. And they showed you from time to time. I watched them a couple of times against Ohio State. I watched one time Ohio State really were, really upon them. And I saw another time where without Hunter Dickinson and without Coach Howard, they beat Ohio State. Because you get lackadaisical, they have enough talent where they can beat you. And I think with Michigan, that's going to be their MO. Plus, too, I think they have a chip on their shoulder. You had the opportunity to lose in the Big Ten tournament, and then you get graced by coming back being in the NCAA tournament now. You get another opportunity. Yeah, I don't see Coach Howard letting that go by and not telling them how important it is and how far they should be able to go with just a little effort. He's probably taking them down the block and go, you know what, if we do this, we can get ready. But and probably he's telling them about some of his tales in the NCAA tournament as well. So, with the Fab Five, in fact, I wouldn't be surprised. But if I had a choice based on adrenaline and where they're coming back out, I choose Michigan.
Well, here's the way this plays out, because this is interesting. Colorado State did not win the Mountain West. Colorado State finished second. They got in a large bid, and they're a 6th seed. That tells you that the committee thinks highly of them, which I don't know if that means anything or not, but at least they are respected by the committee, saying you didn't win the tournament, but we still put you as a 6th seed. That's pretty cool. On the other hand, Michigan, who's the 11 seed, is favored by 2.5 by the sports book. So, you can look at this in a couple different ways. And I'm not really sure exactly what you need to think about. Now, I've seen both teams play. I haven't seen Colorado State play as much as I saw Michigan play. And to me, it comes down to, again, whether if the big boy can shine, he can shine. But will he shine? That is the question. So I'm going to go with the least German judge. I'm going to go with the committee, and I'm going to go against the book, and I'm going to take Colorado State.
Well, interesting pick. But the one thing that I see, and I think everybody knows on that committee where Michigan is and what their potential is with the talent, particularly with Hunter Dickinson, because they could have easily have just put Michigan State through them in a playing game, but they didn't do that.
Sure, right. Good point.
They even though they're 11 seed, they put them in the tournament. So that means they think they belong to be there. So I'm still a little skeptical about Colorado State as a 6th seed. I mean, there's so many other things you could have done. Again, like we talk about that, you wonder about what's going on with the committee. Was they have again St. Mary's as a 5? I mean, that's just, we'll see. And maybe they know what you're talking about. Maybe I'm just the guy running my mouth. But no, I don't know. I don't think there's a big, because when you say that Colorado State's a 6, Michigan's 11, there's a major difference. That's 5 spots on the rung. And so basically when you say that, you're saying they're that much better than Michigan. But the books are saying totally different. And so with that being said, I'm going to go with the talent. And again, like I said, Hunter Dickinson is a pro. There's some other guys on there that play real well. They play at a better conference. They've seen it all. So that's why I'm choosing Michigan. But you got to do what you got to do. You can go with the committee. Keep rolling with that committee. See where it gets you. But the people have to make the call. So up to you guys. We split on this one. Your call.
And sticking with the authority figures for a change, right? All right. This is okay. I'm not going to preface this by saying other than it's number 3 Tennessee versus number 14 Longwood. Go ahead and roll with that, and I will try and gather my thoughts on what I want to say here.
Well, the thing about this is, in the past, this is a game that Tennessee could lose. And I'm telling you, this is set up where they kind of go somewhere and do whatever. But, considering the coach that they have now, it's a little different. Tennessee's a very good team. When you look at them and watch them play, they have some very impressive wins, and they're playing a very tough conference. But I think Longwood had to do everything right, and Tennessee would have to do everything wrong for them to lose. And I think part of it for Tennessee to lose, and I think they just have to you got to give a great effort. And sometimes that happens where, the team that you have favored, like a number 3, Tennessee can't hit the side of a barn. And that 14 seed just kind of comes up. But I'm wondering is Longwood ready for this opportunity? Are they ready on that stage? And if they are, they'll show it. If not, it's like, man, maybe next year. Because when you're not used to it, and Tennessee, particularly when you have a coach that's been around for a while, he has that experience, can go a long way, and you just don't slide into be a number 3 seed, right? There were people that were talking about Tennessee deserved a higher seed. So with that being said, 3 seeds, nothing to sneeze at. It's not a 5. It is a 3. And I think they're going to do well against Longwood. Again, it might just be a bit much for Longwood against Tennessee.
Okay, and this isn't meant to shine ignorance on you, but what conference is Longwood in, and where are they located?
I don't know.
Yeah. See, that's the scary part. That's the scary part, because you don't know. If you don't know, many people don't know. They are in the Big South, and they are from Farmville, Virginia.
Okay, great.
Now, what does that mean? Nothing. But the point of it is, there are teams in this tournament that even when we do our research, we know nothing about them.
Right.
As I was just looking at something, their coach used to be a corporate executive, something making triple figures, and he threw it all away or whatever to coach college basketball. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's important or not. It probably isn't. Here's what I think is important of the entire thing. And we've been following this and this man for decades now. And I have never made a dime betting on a Rick Barnes team. It's just the way it is. Whether it be at Texas, whether it be before that, Rick Barnes his teams just always do something it doesn't work well for me, let's put it that way. So not to say this is primed for an upset, and maybe it's down the road, but as a 3 seed, Tennessee is overvalued, I think, even though, like I say, they played great ball down the stretch. They played in a great conference. They've done all the things you can ask for them, but there's something about it that I just don't like. I don't know. And you mentioned when it was Bruce Pearl there, when it was whoever was the coach there, there's something about this program that doesn't work well under pressure. So this could be a reach because, again, I know absolutely zip about Longwood, but it has to happen at some point in this tournament. It always does. I'm taking Longwood. Now, am I taking them to win the whole thing? I don't know. But Tennessee, at the time that we've started looking at this, was favored by 16.5. I think Longwood makes it at the very least a 6-point game.
But you're taking Longwood to win.
I said at the very least they make it a 6-point game, but I think they win. I think they win.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to go back and look at this tape. Now, you can do what you want to, and I might be wrong, but a 3 and a 14. So you had your best, do what you got to do, make your best, place your best. If Longwood beats Tennessee, I will come out and publicly make a statement. I will make a statement about the greatness of Mr. Gordon. But now,
it's not that. What? Okay, here's what it is, ladies and gentlemen. Here is the situation. We all know this. It happens every tournament. Somebody gets turned upside down. If you can get who it is, that's great. Somebody, 2 beats a 15 on occasion. Remember when Virginia lost as a 1? It happens. A 3-14 happens. I think it happens every year. Do you know which one it's going to be? Probably not. I think it's this one. I could be wrong, but there is a game where something happens, and I think if you dig in deep enough to look at what you think it could be and why, I think that the weak point here is, well, I don't know if I would call it the weak point. It's that Rick Barnes has never done me any good, so I might as well bet against him instead of betting with him.
At least
there's my logic right there.
At least you're honest in telling people why you just don't like Rick Barnes.
Yeah,
you don't like Rick Barnes.
Vengeance is mine on Rick Barnes. Yeah, right.
You don't like Rick Barnes. At least that's honest.
I don't like Rick Barnes, so screw him. I'm going to bet against him. But I mean, realistically, now again, I mean, let me go back in time here, and again, does the history mean anything? Probably not. But I can look at it this way. I'm going to point out a couple things just so you have an idea of where I'm coming from. Okay. When Rick Barnes was at Texas, he did me no favors. None at all. When he was, I think even the year he was an assistant at Ohio State, if I'm not mistaken, didn't they get upset that year? Back in the mid-'80s? Something like that. Providence, he didn't do me any good. Clemson, he didn't do me any good. All that hasn't done me any good. I think he was at Ohio State for a year or two or something like that. Wasn't that the year that they might have made the NIT the year before he got there, something like that. And then nothing happened. So it just snowballs. Hasn't done me any good. Anyhow, all right, moving on. Don't want to belabor that too much. Speaking of Ohio State, the Ohio State University versus Loyola of Chicago. Do you go with your heart or do you go with your heart?
No, you go with your head too, though. Because, I mean, and I know, as you can see what's going on here, always 10 all day, always in the building. Anyway, but a lot of people have picked the number 10 seed, Loyola, to win this game, and talking about Ohio State has lost 4 of the last 5. I get all that. They've had a couple players out. I get all that too. And talking about Coach Valentine for Loyola Chicago really has the guys playing real hard, and they look real good, and they play strong, and they get after defensively. And this is the game because Ohio State's going to falter. I get all that too. But while my heart says one thing, my head says the exact same thing. The factor that I think they're discounting, there's a number of things with Ohio State this year. They have a very talented team. You have E.J. Liddell and Branham, the young freshmen, is playing real well. They have a couple other hosts, other guys that play on the team, on that roster. They give you all, and they play a little hard too. The key thing here is about Ohio State, I've been watching them all year, is Ohio State's basketball team, when they lost the majority of their games, they struggle against teams that are bigger than them, struggle with teams that are more physical than they are, and teams that can put their number one player, E.J. Liddell, in a box. And the problem that I have with Loyola this year, and I know everybody was sad about Swansea Sister Jean and all of that, and, you know, where they made their run and defeating Illinois and that, things of that nature. The problem is this. They're not really that big. I think the tallest player is 6'7", 6'8" max. And they have good guard play, but Ohio State is long. They have a lot of players that are 6'7", 6'8", 6'6" that can move the ball. And the other part of it, too, is E.J. Liddell had a bad taste in his mouth last year when they lost to Oral Roberts.
Right.
He tried to win the game, and they just kind of stood around looking like what happened. I think he's going to go professional after this year. He's going to go pro. And I don't think he wants to finish his career in such a way. So I'm expecting a monster game from him, a monster effort. Because I don't know what's going to happen after this. I'm not even going to look forward ahead or anything. I do know it was a possibility, but I'm talking about this particular game. And I think people are playing Ohio State short because now, if they also are able to get back a couple key players from injury, you know, I think it was Key, the big center, and the other big fella might be in protocol. He may not make it back. But however, he may not make it back. But still, I think they're going to come in a lot more focused. They're going to be the team that people were talking about earlier in the year, because I think they don't want to lose this game. You know, you stumble early in the Big Ten tournament, and they want to turn around and say, hey, we're really not that bad. And now we got another opportunity, and way Coach Holtman does pump these guys up. I think they're going to have too much for Loyola Chicago. I think people are really, including the media, are buying into what happened a year or two ago.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah,
they're buying into it like this is the same team, and it's not. They're very good, but then the other team, last thing, if I get off this very quickly, I was thinking about this game, and I said, I need a point so people will say, makes sense to me. Loyola Chicago, when you look at their wins, they don't have any marquee wins that I know of, but they only lost 2 back-to-back games this year. They lost to Auburn. They lost to Michigan State. They lost in Michigan State by 3-4 points, something to that effect. Ohio State owned Michigan State, beat them by like 13, 15. They clearly did not match up. So you do the logic. I'm kind of straightforward like that. If Ohio State can manhandle the team that beats you, what are they going to do to you? And granted, any other time I saw Ohio State lose to Penn State, I know Ohio State lost to Nebraska, but in this particular situation, with them being in the place that they were, really frustrated by what happened before losing early in the Big Ten tournament, I think they come out with a vengeance. And I think that's going to be hard to weather for a team like Loyola Chicago.
Well, here's what I see, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we fall in love with these things all the time, and it's an easy thing to do. Let's look at I'm just going to throw a couple of schools out there for the last decade or two. Northern Iowa, Florida Gulf Coast, Loyola Chicago, Butler, Virginia Commonwealth, VCU. Teams that made a run, and now we expect that run for the next 3 years. Even when the players that made the run aren't there anymore. You know, we're still looking for the next VCU run, even though Shaka Smart's been gone for 6 years now. You know, Lob City and Florida Gulf Coast. Wow, they can do that. Andy Enfeld's been in UCLA or USC now for 5 years. You know, Ali Krumnesh or whatever from Northern Iowa, he's been gone for a while. But when you see those names and those colors, you're thinking, okay. And when you fill out your bracket, you think that they still have that magic. This is a whole new Loyola Chicago team. The coach is elsewhere. Porter Moser, he's elsewhere. Mm-hmm. He's in, is he in Missouri? Something like that.
Oklahoma,
that's it, right, yeah. Yeah, so, you know, the coach is gone. everything is different other than Sister Jean. It doesn't mean they can't make a run, but take it for who they are, not who they were. Now, you could say we banked on UCLA and Kansas and all. Well, UCLA is still John Wooden. Well, that was a long time ago. We still think of that. So it works both ways. But when you're comparing the team to who they are right now, to who they're playing, I think Ohio State's a better team. So I don't see the upset here. I think Ohio State, now looking at whether Ohio State covers the spread, that's a whole other story. But I think it's one of those where you say, well, no matter what happens, Ohio State's going to rock this one. So actually, in this one, they've got Loyola favored by 1.5.
Really?
Take Ohio State in the money, yeah.
No doubt. I'm taking that one right now. I'm not taking it.
Right. All day, all night. Yeah. So cool. All right. So
call my guy real quick.
Yeah, call my guy. So let's look at the bottom of the bracket here. Villanova against Delaware. Now, again, this is another one where you say, well, Villanova traditionally blah, 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 and Jay Wright traditionally blah, 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 and they went to the Final Four, and Brunson and blah, blah. Okay. Who on this team other than Connor Gillespie do you know
of? They have a forward. I don't know his name, but they've earned the 2 seed.
Right. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying this is a different Villanova team than what we're used to.
Right. I agree with that. But they've earned the 2 seed. They still been winning games. They come playing a very difficult conference. So sometimes when you're watching a team where you may not know the names, but the numbers, the numbers on the jerseys or the people in the body in the jerseys, as long as they're playing games and they're winning, that's all you really care about. Sometimes the best teams are unknown. You really don't know who they are, but you know that the coach has done great things at Villanova. He continues to do them. They've fallen a little bit off, not like they have been in the past with a championship flavor. But I think as long as he's there and he keeps recruiting the way that he does, they'll always be in the mix. And I think this is the way they move forward in this game. Okay,
so we're looking at a roster here of Villanova players that have probably been there for a few years. Jay Wright's been there for a few years, and they now, again, we're looking at the Big East being better than it's been. So I can't, and I know I said earlier, there's always an upset in the making. I'm sorry, Delaware people, I'm not even going to mention that most people don't know where you are on the map. But let's just say that 16.5 seems safe for this game. Okay, we're going to pause for just a second here because I have to ask Mr. Farmer a question here real quick. Okay, folks, we're going to do a little speed round for the second half of this because we were a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Long-winded there. Okay, so starting in the second half, we're going to the Midwest. Starting quickly, Kansas versus Texas State winner. I'm sorry, who is it? Texas State that won that game, or Texas Southern?
Texas Southern.
Texas Southern. I'm sorry. What do you think, Kansas?
Texas Southern played real hard, but it's going to be hard for HBCU to come up against the number 1 seed in the conference, Kansas.
Now, I have to mention that my father went to Texas Southern for about 3 months and was on the Black National Championship football team in 1952, though he didn't realize it until 2005. Anyway, all right, number 8 versus 9, San Diego State versus Creighton.
Yeah, San Diego State, the one thing about it, they play really hellified defense. And Creighton has been up and down on a number of angles from the standpoint of how they play. I think San Diego State's defense and the way they get after you, I think Creighton is pretty good defensive too. But I think San Diego State, if I'm not mistaken, their defense is like in the top 15 in the country. They really get after you. And I think that alone is going to take them where they need to go. Plus, too, they played in a solid conference. They played against some very good teams this year. So I'm going to take San Diego State.
Well, just for you that are looking for something different, this is the only game that the over-under total is below 120 points, 119.5. So it's an anticipated low-scoring defensive game. San Diego State favored by 2.5. I would stay with San Diego State as well. Like I said, they play well out in the West, and things should go well from there. All right, this is a game. This is a team that people are projecting big things from. I'm not so sure. Number 5, Iowa versus number 12, Richmond.
Yeah, Iowa, when you think about it, they have the dangerous combination of the brothers, the M brothers, to make it happen. So And they also have other talent as far as guards, and they also have a big fella too. I think they're going to make a run, a small run. I think they win this game. Richmond is good, but Iowa has a chip on the shoulder, which really allowed Iowa to win the Big Ten tournament. They played Purdue. They probably out, as far as the lineup, they probably were a better talented lineup and bigger. But Iowa willed themselves, and Iowa loves to score points as well. So I have Iowa.
And in this game, it's the exact opposite of the game before. This is the game that's tied for the highest over-under total, 150.5, tied with the Marquette, North Carolina game. This is an Iowa team, like you said, the Murray twins, Keegan Murray especially. They've got long, athletic guys that can ball. They score the hell out of the ball. They've got experienced guards. They've got the most experienced guard to ever play in the NCAA, which is saying something. Played the most games ever in the NCAA, which is, insane. I think he's like in his 7th year, 6th year, or whatever. Bohannon. They've got a shot to make a run, make a deep run. Richmond hasn't been here in a while, and I don't think they're going to be here much longer. So, yeah, let's look at Iowa there. Now, we looked at the over-under. I don't know if you want to go that far, but Iowa's favored by 9.5. So you might be able to get something out of that just because it's going to be a shootout, and Richmond could stay close just because of that. But I think it's Iowa running away.
No doubt.
Number 4, Providence against number 13, South Dakota State.
Yeah, my understanding, South Dakota State likes to shoot a lot of jumpers. They run, get up and down. And Providence is just kind of the opposite. And because based on the conference that they play in, so they're trying to slow down, get nasty. And the up-tempo jackrabbit, fast-tempo basketball pace that you like to play is wonderful when the jumpers are falling. But if the three-pointers are not falling in the basket, then you got to play half court outside your domain and what you're comfortable with. And I think that's going to be a problem for them. And I think that's where Providence with the 4th seed is going to be able to handle this pretty easily.
I look at it this way. This is, again, I've said this a few times. This is stating whether the the Big East is back. And also looking at a couple of things here that I think are very important. I think the Big East is back or pretty close to it. This is also, how do you get the job done as a coach? Where do you come from? How do you get there? How do you make things work? And I just want to touch on this real quick and I'll get off of it. Ed Cooley is coaching his butt off this year and has been for the last couple of years. He really has. And he's one of these guys that started he played at, I think it was Stonehill, someplace that you've never heard of, no offense. He coached at one of the UMass schools, I think UMass, I want to say it was Dartmouth or something like that. I was an assistant at Rhodey, assistant at BC, I think. And then he's got his head coaching job at Fairfield. And then he's been at Providence for a decade. And not always positively at Providence, but he's been working his butt off. And now to the point where it's a nice team. It's a nice squad. They've done some nice things. They put a couple guys in the pros in the last 5-6 years. And it's a referendum, I think, on the Big East and on Ed Cooley. So we'll stay with Providence in this. Looking at LSU, Iowa State. Wow, here's some drama for both of these schools.
Yeah, well, Iowa State is early on were playing pretty good, and then they kind of fell off a little bit, which I think they got the 11th seed. LSU had some issues, even with the coach. They dismissed the coach, but they brought an interim coach in, and that could affect them a little bit. But the one thing about LSU, they're very talented. They have a lot of talent over there, and they've been finding ways to win. And I think with that being said, the talent alone is going to get them over the hump. And maybe they're going to play a little differently because of what has happened, kind of play with a chip on their shoulder. So I'm going to choose LSU to beat Iowa State.
It's one of those things where you're looking at Will Wade gone at LSU. Can you do what you need to do when your coach has been canned or let go or whatever you want to say in the middle of the season? Is this something that LSU can overcome at this particular point? And, it's Fred Hoiberg said Iowa State, correct?
I think so.
Yeah, and I remember that hasn't always gone that smoothly because, is that the guy? Is he still the mayor? Is that what we need from him? So I don't know. I'm going to look at Iowa State this one. I just think that when push comes to shove, what has to happen, I think Iowa State's going to be better prepared and better in tune with their coach. So I think Iowa State in this one. And again, it's one of those 6-11 games that they usually swing one way or another. All right, number 3, Wisconsin versus number 14, Colgate.
Yeah, Colgate, let me just say, usually plays well for their conference. You look at their numbers, you're always impressed by them, and they give you all that they have. You watch them play a game, you're like, man, those dudes can play. But then again, when they step up their game to a higher level of competition, they kind of fall out. They kind of fold a little bit. No fault of their own, because when you're used to playing in a certain conference and dominating, it's what it is. But when you play, the quad 1 teams, quad 2 teams, you kind of disappear. And Wisconsin has one of the top players in the country. And also, too, at times they can play well. They come at you hard. They can shoot the ball when they need to. They lack a little bit on defense, but they are a very rambunctious team, and they really have a lot of heart, and they go hard. So with that being said, I think that's going to be too much for Colgate. So I'm choosing Wisconsin.
I always look at these teams like in the Patriot League that win their league, regular season, and conference final, that they earn their way there. And I'm not saying the teams that didn't win the regular season but that won the conference championship, they don't deserve to be there. But this has been the best team in the Patriot League all season. Having said that, I don't think the Patriot League stacks up to the Big Ten. And Greg Gard has made a smooth transition from the previous regime, from Bo Ryan and everything that's going on there. And they've got some guys that can just get after you. Like I said, Johnny Davis can ball. So not the Johnny Davis from Dayton, Ohio, but the Johnny Davis that's out there now, and he can ball. So that's something where you look at and go, it would take a major effort on Colgate's part to be able to pull this game off. All right, USC, Miami, Florida, and Jim Larinaga, 7-10 game.
Very tough game because we know what Larinaga can do, and he always has his guys ready. Miami's coming in hard-nosed, playing, pressing, just scrapping the whole 9. And I think they have a very good chance to win this game. But I had a chance to watch USC early, and they have a talented group of individuals. It's just whether or not they want to play. Who do they want to play? And I don't think the other Mobley twin wants to go out like this when he's trying to see what his draft stock is going to be like. And they're loaded all the way across the board. They have a nice squad. They just don't always play the potential. Again, in a close game, I can see them losing this game. But on the other hand, I think they're going to find a way to use their talent. They'll win this game. So I'm going with USC.
This is another one where you say, do I believe in the committee or do I believe in the odds makers? Because committee has it a 7-10 game. The odds makers have Miami by 1.5. But I think USC, though I don't know that I'm a big Andy Enfield fan. I don't know that his teams play as tight as they need to be, as well constructed, I guess is the best way of putting it. But they're too long, they're too strong. Yeah, I think they take this game, and I think they take this game going away. No offense to Larinaga and Miami in the ACC, but I think that when, like you said, push comes to shove, USC is a better team.
Yeah.
All right, the last game in this bracket, Auburn versus Jacksonville State. Now, I'll preface this by saying I just did I had a call with a gentleman that covers Jacksonville State a couple of days ago, and he said basically, oh, man, I hope we get a chance to play. I hope we get a chance to play. He didn't say a chance to win, but it's just a chance to play. They get a chance to actually go out there and show what's going on. But he also said Auburn's pretty tough too. So what do you think?
Yeah, well, I think that's going to be a problem for Jacksonville State because you got a couple NBA prospects on there. You got with Jabari Smith, some other guys too, and your buddy Bruce Pearl down there, despite the alleged allegations and whatnot. Still, that's when he does his best work is when there's always some controversy surrounding him. It's like they end up being a number 2 seed in the tournament. And I think it's going to be too much for Jacksonville State, unfortunately. So Bruce Pearl and the fellas running it and getting the iced coffees, making it happen. So I think
don't worry about Bruce. He always leaves before the sanctions come, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Bruce will be just fine. Now, I rail on Bruce on occasion, but Bruce can coach. I'll give him credit for that. He can coach. Whatever happens when he's there, I don't know if about that, but he can coach. And Jacksonville State is, I said, oh, well, maybe they can put Artis Gilmore on the floor. That's how much we know about Jacksonville State. Artis Gilmore played at Jacksonville. So anyway, the idea being this is a team that's going to be overmatched, and it's 2-15. It could be 12-6. It doesn't matter. This Auburn team is that good. And they really are that good. That's the thing about watching the SEC often when they force feed it to you. You realize that Jabari Smith can play, and your boy, I want to call him Walker Buehler from the Dodgers, the guy that transferred from, was it Carolina? He can play too. Yeah, so they got a nice squad there. All right, let's go to the top of the last bracket, the West bracket. Out here on the Best Coast, the number 1 seed overall, Gonzaga Bulldogs versus Georgia State and the Panthers.
Yeah, it's a tough one for Georgia State. They're here. They want to make noise, but Gonzaga, it's the tournament now, so they might have been a little bit more lackadaisical during the regular season, but starting turning on. I know Drew Timmy's going to definitely be ready. You just kind of teach Hogan how to get it done, and I know you've not heard a lot from Timmy, but I know he's zeroed in, so I see them walking through this real quick and easy.
But 24.5 points?
I'm going to say all that. I mean, you can run that there if you want to, but you don't know with Georgia State. I mean, probably not, but I don't know if it's 24. I mean, if I was going to look at it, I might take it just because if I was just looking for something to bet on. But overall, it's not going to be a lot to it. Okay. 24 is a lot.
And we did say that we're not really versed on the point stuff, but 24.5 seems like a big number in an NCAA tournament game, regardless who's playing. So,
yeah.
Okay. All right. Boise State, Memphis. I could spend 3 days on this one, but we won't. 8-9. Boise at number 8, Memphis at number 9.
Boise State is a very tough team. Problem with Memphis has a lot of talent, and there were a lot of expectations on this team from when you go back to Amani Bates was with the team. They got a lot of young guys that are just athletic and talented, but I don't think that they've lived up to that point. Early on, they definitely did not, but then they made a run late in the season when they won 8 or 9 games or something like that. Yeah. And then they ended up getting blasted by Houston in the championship game. So you don't know what team is going to show up. But with that being said, it's the tournament. Penny Hardaway is going to try to coach them. I know people would go 8-9. I think I'm going to take Memphis just because I like to see them advance. And I think they have the talent to do it. But I think this is really a toss-up game. But I'm going to go with Memphis.
I think, and again, we don't want to belabor the point here, but I think this is the game where we find out not only from today, but from years from now, is Penny Hardaway a legitimate coach? I'm not saying he's not, but I'm saying this is where we find out how does Penny coach a game that he has to coach? Because this is where the rubber meets the road. You have to be able to play. Boys, like you said, Boise State can play. And Memphis has to show up and play together. And part of the whatever you want to talk about, the stuff swirling around of that program is all these kids are already making money with the NILs. A lot of them think they're going to make the league. Whether they will or not is another story. So they have to find something to play for, whether that's Penny or for Memphis or whatever. They have to find something to play for together for this game. And if he can't get them to play together, which has been when they haven't played well, then maybe he is just a glorified AAU coach. I'm not saying it is, but maybe that's what it is. So I'm going to take Boise State. Not to say that I think Penny falls down, but I think Boise State's going to be better galvanized to do better in this game. Plus, it's a tight game, so we'll go that way. And Memphis is favored by 2.5. So I'm going to take Boise in the points.
Okay.
All right. UConn and New Mexico State.
Wow. I like the way New Mexico State plays. I like the way that they scrap. They come after you really hard. But I'm going to give UConn the benefit of the doubt based on the conference and what they've done in the past and what they've done this year. So simply put, I'm going to go with UConn.
Well, this is what's interesting about this game. Now, I'm not sure how this plays out, and maybe I missed something. As a independent for New Mexico State, now they're obviously playing in the conference for basketball, but as an independent for football, this is where UConn was as well, that they were independent in football not too long ago. So it's kind of like, what are we playing for? Now, I know that doesn't mean a lot on the court, but it's kind of that the business of college sports is in play here. We made a move in order to get ourselves in a better position. UConn gets back in the Big Eight, or the Big East, I'm sorry. I think New Mexico State ends up, I think they end up in the WAC. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to play out, but I think that's how it's going to work. Which team has suffered the most having been independent or independent-like for the last few years? Again, we're talking about playing an independent schedule and being able to actually play against a conference slate. And New Mexico State, I think, has suffered more because there are fewer schools out west that they could get games with. And UConn was still basically technically in conferences. UConn's looked pretty good. And this is the Danny Hurley stamp on them, where they look to be tough now, where I don't know if you could have said that under Kevin Ollie. They look like they have that Jim Calhoun toughness again. So I like UConn. Again, you're going to probably see a little bit more of a spread here than you would like, or less than a spread you'd like. But I say take UConn and whatever they offer you. I'll figure that out here in a second. Arkansas, Vermont. Another SEC team. Arkansas, the 4th seed. Vermont, the 13th seed.
Arkansas has been playing tough basketball this year. The thing about Arkansas is they play in such a tough conference. They're never seen as the top team. So, therefore, they're always fighting for respectability. And Vermont comes out as a 13th seed trying to prove something. And maybe they're trying to prove off that they're better and they belong in the tournament. But I think Arkansas is really going to play with a lot of fire and, again, trying to prove themselves like they belong. And you watch somebody like this where they're like, okay, we made a nice little run last year. We want to pick up on that. So I can see them winning this game. So I'm going to choose Arkansas.
Well, this is another one of those that's a 6.5-point spread, just like the game before we were talking about UConn. Arkansas is a 6.5-point favorite as well. Arkansas, Musselman has we talked about in the show earlier how there are a few coaches that this is they have to do it this year. And I think Musselman has to do it here. I think with Vermont, just as we were talking about the Florida Gulf Coast and the College of Charleston's and those schools that have made a real bit of a run, we have this romantic concept of Vermont maybe putting a stamp on this game from what they've done in the past. I don't think so this year. I think it's Arkansas, and I think it's Arkansas big. 6.5, I think, is a little bit too small of a spread for that one. Alabama against the winner of the game is probably getting ready to start, if it hasn't started already, Rutgers, Notre Dame.
I'm going to say this. I think the winner wow. I'm going to choose Alabama to move on. It's just something about that. I think Rutgers and Notre Dame, I think Rutgers is going to win that game. But I'm going to choose Alabama to move. I'm going to choose Alabama.
Regardless. Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm going to put it this way. If Notre Dame wins, Alabama beats Notre Dame. If Rutgers wins, Rutgers beats Alabama. I think Rutgers is a hard-nosed team that when they're on is just a little bit too in the moment for teams. And Alabama's kind of been up and down. Rutgers, if they're on. Now, if they're not on, they could get blown out by 30. But they've got some good, solid players that are hard-nosed players. I think they take it to Alabama if they win. But they still have to get past Notre Dame. So that's why I see that. Notre Dame wins, Alabama wins. If Rutgers wins, Rutgers wins.
Okay.
Texas Tech, number 3. Montana State, number 14.
Wow. Texas Tech is one of my favorite teams of all season. They play very hard, very strong. They run hard. They play in a very tough conference. And the one thing I like about Texas Tech, probably as one of my favorites, I'm not sure, I'm not saying they're going to the Final Four, nothing like that. But one thing about them is they only have 2 guys that are in double figures, average double figures. They have 4 guys that are close to 10 points. So they're a scrappy team. they just come after. They won't play ugly basketball, and they played every freaking body. They played Providence, lost to them, played Tennessee, played Gonzaga, played Iowa State, played Kansas 3 times, played Baylor, and they played Texas, and they played TCU. So everybody, how can you go against that team? Texas Tech.
There's also something that could be considered there. And you mentioned Ralph Beard or Butch Beard or James Beard or whoever you're talking about. There is something that's going on with this team. They don't want to be known as Beard's old team.
Right.
They want to be known as this team. They have a chip on their shoulder that is humongous. And they've had something to prove all season. We noticed it when they played Texas when Beard came to town. It's like, and the fans are like, you left us? Are you kidding me? You went to that place and you left us? Do you know what we're going to do? Yeah, this is one of those teams where we could be talking about them in another week and a half easily.
Yep.
No matter what the number is. All right. Then we've got Michigan State Davidson, which might be the opposite of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at Davidson, you see how they go about their business. They have a very good shot at winning this game. Thing about Michigan State is we're so used to them playing a certain kind of way, but this year it's a different kind of team. The hard part of this is they only have one guy, Gabe Brown, that averaged double figures. Davidson has to score points, and they can't score points, and they take care of the ball. I think they're good in a good place. And the problem I have is Michigan State has lost they're 8-10 in their last 18.
Right.
So that's not really good basketball. So I'm surprised you. I'm gonna take Davidson.
No surprise, I was going to do the same thing. I haven't seen that game out of Michigan State yet.
Yeah.
And usually see it once every now and then, whether it be against Ohio State or whether it be against Michigan. I haven't seen that game yet. And it's just, like you said, 8 of the last 10. And they're playing in the Big Ten, so that's not, ridiculously bad. But Tom Izzo usually has them up for a game or two, and they haven't been up for that game yet. Yeah. So, and this is what we were talking about, or I was talking about, we see Davidson from years past with McKillop and Steph Curry and all that. Well, it's a different thing, but it still has McKillop. So, yeah, taking Davidson. And we close it out with, appropriately, what could possibly be, I'm just joking, but it's possible, the last game of Coach K's career, Duke versus Cal State Fullerton.
Yeah.
Is it the last game of Coach K's career?
I don't think so. I think Duke got embarrassed. Coach K at home. He was pissed off, and he doesn't want to go out that way. So it's like we got another opportunity. Quiet as it's kept. They've been playing up and down. I don't know if it's Coach K trying to leave or he's, been having issues with being sick and whatever. But on a piece of paper, Duke is very talented. I mean, this is a Duke team that beat Gonzaga early in the year. Mm-hmm. They were beat by Ohio State early in the year, but they rebounded and came back strong. So it just kind of depends. I think sometimes the fatigue, because they're so always trying to be the number one team or trying to be up in the upper echelon, hurts them. And guys get tired and they drop a couple games here and there. But I think they're very good. They're very talented. They have size. They get up and down. Probably one of Coach K's better teams talent-wise. Nobody's saying that. But when you watch them, you go, man, they get it. And I think if he was younger, it might be a different story. They'd probably even be better. But I think he's tired. I really do think he's tired. Right. And it's just a different way that they play the game. But I think it's easy for them moving forward. So I have Duke in this game.
The thing that's the hardest thing to do, and I witnessed it firsthand, is when the succession is in place. And the people involved know that, and it may not be other people, but when it's been pretty much stated, this is the way things are going to go, who do you listen to? Who makes the statement? Who makes the call? Are you listening to two different people? Well, when I saw that Duke Gonzaga game, and I saw John Shire in the huddle a couple times, and I saw Coach K kind of, okay, and the kids are like, who's talking? Who's supposed to be saying stuff? And I just project that on the course of the whole season, that maybe it's been that. It's been the tale of who's coaching, who's talking, who we listen to. This guy's on his way out the door. his rah-rah speech doesn't mean anything to me, even though he is Coach K. And this guy's talking like, but he's not the coach yet, so why is he talking? You know, that those confusing messages might have been part of their up and down season. But again, in this game, I think that he'll have them ready to play because he's had them for a week now. He'll have them ready to play regardless of this game. It's the next game I'm worried about.
Right.
All right, folks, we did this two different ways for a couple of reasons. One, because we like to change things up, and two, we got pressed for time. So let's look at it this way. Give us a feedback on what you like. Did you like the longer version for the first two brackets or the speed version for the second two brackets? I can go either way. I like them both. I like to get in depth on things, but I also understand we did 2 hours of this, so maybe we overstated it. Who knows? But again, it's fun to talk about. It's fun to see where we're going. We're going to get you to at least the Saturday, Sunday games, and we might be able to come back and do those, or we might just have to do a thing on a blog of it and see what happens. But it's an NCAA tournament, folks. I mean, you cannot not have fun with this. So if you don't have True TV or TBS or TNT, get off your butt and go someplace and watch it because it's going to be worth doing.
Or buy your damn Fire Stick.
And we'll put in the comments the certified contractor that Mr. Farmer knows, and we'll get you all set up. Peace. Thank you, folks. Again, remember, it's basketball. It can't be anything but fun. So enjoy yourselves. Thank you.